So again, my name is Chelsea. I am the co-founder and CEO of So Stocked in inventory management software. I also have over 8 years in e-commerce myself, having started an Amazon brand in 2014, and really have gotten into inventory over the past 4 years as a way of solving my own problems within my own business. And along that journey, been able to speak to hundreds of Amazon sellers, usually within the 6 to 8 figure range, being able to find out what are those things that are most common as far as issues or problems coming up with inventory. And this kind of spans from the beginner all the way to even really top sellers. And what are those systems that we can put in place to be able to avoid these, to be able to keep more money, put more money in your pocket and keep more money. So let's go ahead and we're kind of going to talk about a little bit, a key basic, and then get into some more sort of advanced ideas around your supply chain and profitability and some tips to increase that profitability. These are things that aggregators are doing that we should be doing ourselves. And then we're going to be talking about the number one reason that people might stock out, that a seller might stock out, and how to overcome that, as well as how to overcome the overstocking issues. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And like I mentioned, I've gone through some of these points. I've also written over 50 articles on inventory and supply chain management, been on podcasts, and our software is used and recommended by top masterminds, influencers, agencies, and aggregators. So first and foremost, we need to talk about data, because all you have with inventory is you have data. Either the numbers are right or they're not. And if they're not, and if they're significantly off, that's what leads to overstocks and stockouts. So understanding the numbers and understanding how you could think that just getting data straight from Amazon is going to be accurate, but it's how you process that data that's extremely important. So we think numbers and math are absolute, but if you've got some errors in your math, then they are not going to be true to what you need in terms of your inventory. That brings us to the concept of daily adjusted velocity. And we know in general the concept of sales velocity and daily velocity. And these are common terms within the space, but it's important to insert the word adjusted into that conversation in order to get true velocity. There are different ways of calculating how much inventory you need. One of the common ones is to use look at total sales over a period of time. For example, Christmas time, maybe from October to end of December, you sold 10,000 units on a product. If you just take that raw data and you're not adjusting it, you may be over or under ordering. And here's why. You should be using averages for the most part. You can use last year's sales, but it has to be adjusted. So using averages rather than monthly sales totals, and then applying stockouts and sales spikes, factoring those things out. Because if you had a really high month because you had an influencer mention you on their blog or their video, their YouTube video, and you had an extreme sales spike, that's going to cause you to over order if you don't factor that out. If you had stockouts, similarly, you're going to be under ordering because your estimate is going to be lower than what actually could happen if you had prevented the stockout. So could create a stockout cycle. I wanted to illustrate how important this is by giving you an example of a stockout calculation, and how if that calculation is not correct, you could get into some trouble. Even if you have a software or you have a spreadsheet that you are using to try to filter these things out, if you're not using the right math, you could be off. And so we're going to talk about a seller that I was working with. This is a wholesale seller, 7-figure seller, came into SoStock after years of using another software, and he had also built his own spreadsheet. He had a large catalog, and most of his stuff he ran through the software, and then for his best sellers, he kept stocking out. So he built his own spreadsheet, and he'd do his big sellers in the spreadsheet. Still, with these two systems, he was stocking out. So something was not right with how he was calculating his data. It's the same data, but he's getting different answers. When he came into SoStock, he got significantly higher data than the software, and he got moderately higher data than the spreadsheet. So why would this happen? Let's go ahead and break down why this would happen. What was happening is that the competing software was saying he was selling 8 units a day. Spreadsheet was saying 10 units a day, and SoStock was saying 15 units a day. When he was placing his weekly orders, he continued to stock out, but when he actually nailed the proper sales velocity, the true sales velocity, using the adjusted sales velocity calculations, he was able to understand why he was stocking out and keep from stocking out. So there are two reasons why. There are two things you have to factor in with the stock out. You have to factor in, did you have stock? Obviously, with Amazon FBA, if you didn't have stock, you're not going to be able to make sales. This data is something that can historically be pulled from Amazon's API. We haven't been able to necessarily find it. Maybe they added it with a new, with some new updates, but a few years ago, we weren't able to find the historical inventory data in reports that you could download. It only came through the API. So if you don't have an API pool, this is something that you could actually create a stock out log. And we have a DIY spreadsheet that factors a stock out log into things. So if you're using an Excel spreadsheet and you only have a few SKUs, this might be a good thing to adopt. Otherwise, SoStock, again, factors this in. I know some people on this call are using SoStock. Second thing that needs to be factored into stock out calculation is, was there an unusual interruption to your normal sales velocity? So it's not that you didn't have inventory. It's not that you didn't have sales. It's that you had a lower sales day before stock out, or a lower sales day coming back from a stock out. Or during a stock out, Amazon finds that 1 unit and sells it on a day. And or even things like listing suspensions. A listing suspension is such an event that it should be treated as a stock out, because you're not selling inventory, and that's not something that you want to repeat itself. That's going to cause you to stock out, because your orders are going to be your orders for your inventory are going to be lower than what they should be. So most of the stock out algorithms that we found, and one of the reasons that Amazon, when they had their restock limits worked so poorly, because Amazon was not factoring stock outs correctly, as well as the softwares that I tried 4 years ago, I tried to solve this problem and wasn't able to find a good software for it. The factor that's being used, the only factor that usually is being used is, did you have stock? And that becomes a problem because you're not adding those other factors. If we look at in detail, let's say you're selling 100 units a day, and then you stock out, and right before you stock out, you sell 23 units, and then Amazon finds that 1 unit and sells it, and then you come back in stock at the end of the day, and 13 units are sold. These should all be treated as stock out days, because they're going to throw off your average. If they're not treated as stock out days, your numbers are going to look very, very different. So if we look at this scenario, we look at a 30-day average velocity, and you'll see that the competing software, based on their calculations, is going to project that your daily velocity is 90 units a day. But when we use daily adjusted velocity properly, we see that it's 100 units a day. So if you have a 3-month order, that's going to be a significant difference in terms of the amount of inventory that you are short. This is why it's so important to get this information correct. And again, this also applies to sales spikes in a similar way, as you can imagine. So that's the first thing foundationally that you need to understand, is that your data is actually being calculated correctly, so that when you place your orders and you place your transfers, you're actually doing it with the right information to avoid stockouts or future stockouts and over ordering, which leads to what I call the silent killer, which is holding fees. That we're going to be getting into holding fees. We're going to be getting into holding fees as well as say overstocking fees, as well as stockouts and fulfillment fees. The original concept of why I created SoStocked and what I was trying to achieve is, if I could avoid stockouts, or if I could change little tiny things in my business, if I could gain, let's say, 5 units, 5 units or 5 cents per unit, even 5 cents per unit across a catalog ends up being a lot of money saved, a lot of money put back in my pocket. So things like avoiding expensive air shipments. And we actually have someone who used SoStocked and was able to change from air shipments, because they're always running late and always getting that calculation wrong, to being able to switch to ocean shipments, and was able to save 75 cents per unit. So it can be significant if you start getting your systems in place. So that's a concept that I like to refer to as little hinges move big doors. This is a phrase that is used to indicate that all these tiny little changes can make a big difference, right? If you do one thing here, one thing there, it shaves off a little bit, and then across your entire catalog, it makes for huge improvements in your business. The opposite of little hinges move big doors is death by paper cuts. And that's what I was experiencing in 2018, really feeling that every little thing that was occurring, 3PL fees going up, Amazon fees going up, all of these things were reducing my profit. My competitors lowering their prices, the profit recovery became extremely important for me. We got our unit packaging, that's going to equal FBA fees. And we know that dimensional weight is a new factor. And we're going to talk about what does that look like. The carton packaging, when you go to 3PLs, that's carton fees. You pay probably between $3 and $5 per carton to process those. Palletizing, you've got storage fees, you've also got handling fees, and containers equals shipping fees. And we kind of assume that these are things that we can't get around. You have to pay your 3PLs what they are asking. You have to pay for the container what is market value. And then Amazon, we know that we can't get much of anywhere with Amazon. So really then the only option that you have is that you can reduce the size of these things. Size really, really matters, and size can change everything across the boards in terms of the money you're putting back in your pocket. So first and foremost, I want to talk about dimensional weight, explain what it is, why it is something that's used in the ground shipping industry, and then how does it affect you with Amazon, because Amazon had not introduced this until this year. This is something that's used by FedEx, by UPS, it's used by most of the carriers, and Amazon's finally adopted it as one of the many fees that they have increased or added in this year. Dimensional weight is the factoring of space and weight and doing a calculation to compare the two, and judging and creating not an actual weight of your product, but what they call a shipping weight. They want to say that if you've got a bunch of pillows and we're going to put the pillows in our truck, that's going to take up a lot of space. And so we want to charge you based on the space and the weight. So that's what dimensional weight is. And it's because, again, you've got a truck, it can only hold a certain amount of weight and it can only hold a certain amount of space. So they want to be able to factor those two things in to make sure that they're making profit on every shipment that they send. So here's the dimensional weight calculation. It's actually pretty simple. All you really have to remember is you are looking for your unit dimensions, your unit length multiplied by your width and your height. Then you're going to divide it by what's called a dim divisor, and that just stands for dimensional divisor, which is a number that is used for division. And that number is 139. What that's going to give you is the actual, the difference between, you've got your unit weight, and then that's going to give you the dimensional weight. So we use an example of a pillow. That's because pillows are very large and compared to their weight. This is an actual example that was pulled from Amazon, and we have the dimensions up here. The weight was about 6 pounds. Amazon always rounds up, so it was basically 6 pounds is what Amazon was charging it at. And then applying dimensional weight overnight, this pillow was now being charged at 21 pounds. Dimensional weight is pretty significant. People have paid attention to the fact that it's something that is being applied in fulfillment fees. So fulfillment fees, people came up in arms. There was a lot of chatter about fulfillment fees and using this dimensional weight. And some people, I have a friend whose fulfillment fees went up by 94% overnight because they sell some pillows. The fulfillment fees were on average increased by 21 cents per unit, and then dimensional weight was added on top of this, which was pretty significant. Then Amazon snuck a couple of these other things by. One of them was remote fulfillment fees, increased by 60%. So that's if you are selling in the US and then your products are being sold and shipped to Mexico and Canada with the remote fulfillment program, also known as the NARF program, North America Remote Fulfillment. So you're paying 60% more, and then you're having to tack on dimensional weight. So if you have large products, that's going to be really difficult for you potentially to make profit unless you start increasing those prices. So this is something to pay attention to, because you may have to start adjusting those prices if you're using that program. Do the math to make sure that you know what your break even is for each of those countries. But also, if you're not going to participate in this program, you may have to opt out of it. Amazon has, within the next few months, is going to be auto-enrolling people in remote fulfillment, and you have to opt out. It used to be a service you would opt into. Now you will have to opt out of it. So pay attention to that. If you have not been paying attention to that, make sure that if you are going to be opted in, that you are making profit. You're not losing money in fees by selling at too low a price for that market. Then we have removal fees. Removal fees have increased by nearly 50% on average, which is pretty substantial, especially when we've got people who have less profitable products, and some of these pillows even become unprofitable products. Then they increase the removal fees as well, making it more costly to even pull that no longer profitable inventory, which is pretty sneaky if I do say so myself. And then of course, dimensional weight. So you are paying a lot more. So the people with pillows and larger lightweight items really got kind of the short end of the stick on this. So that's just an overview. Really quick, FBA fees, we talked about that. There's also a fuel and inflation surcharge of 5%. Removal fees, we talked about that. We talked about remote fulfillment. And then there's something called aged inventory fees. This is gonna tie into some of these inventory processes in terms of overstocking. We have something that is long-term storage fees. And long-term storage fees are fees that kick in, significant fees that kick in at basically day 365. So after a year of being in storage with Amazon, you have a huge fee that you're going to have to pay on a monthly basis for the inventory that's still there. So you don't want to carry inventory, stale inventory that's not moving. It's going to cost you a lot of money. Then we have now this new category, aged inventory. This means at the 9-month mark, you're going to be paying a milder fee, but a fee that is significantly higher than what you would normally pay. So this fee is tacked on. This is a fee, like I said, from 9 months to 12 months. You're going to be charged that for 3 months, and then it's going to notch up to the long-term storage fees. So these are things to be aware of, and there are systems that we can implement to be able to monitor these and make marketing changes accordingly and inventory changes accordingly to avoid a lot of these fees really stacking up on you. So the first I want to talk about in terms of saving money on these fees, we've got FBA fulfillment fees and FBA storage fees. And like I mentioned, size matters. Size is everything. If we can't control Amazon's fees, we can control saving on the other side. So we can control, how do we lower Amazon's fees per unit? For every unit, can I lower my fees? And also, can I lower my 3PL fees and my shipping costs to offset what Amazon has introduced this year? So we'll start with the product packaging itself. And again, this is stuff that the aggregators are doing. Immediately, smart aggregators, immediately they'll look at your business and they will see if they can implement these techniques that I'm going to be talking about to increase the profit per unit, lower the landed cost. And essentially they're gaining a lot more equity in your business that you didn't have. So if you did this a year before selling your business, or really 18 months, because it's going to take a process, but if you've got 18 months before you're planning on selling your business and you start implementing these things, you can walk away with a lot more money in your pocket at the end of the day. So individual SKUs, can you reduce packaging? Can you fold it, vacuum seal it differently? Can you reduce the packaging if you can fit the same amount of product into a smaller packaging like we have here? Those can make a significant change in terms of the fees, the storage and fulfillment fees that you are currently experiencing. Then we have, this is a real world example to show you the difference between making those changes to the product size. The first one, these are both real examples. The first one is a product that is categorized in the large standard category. The shipping weight, the actual shipping weight is 3 pounds. So it was being charged at 3 pounds before this year. Now it's being charged at 12 pounds because of dimensional weight. However, the next one is small oversized, and it was charged at 6 pounds, now at 21 pounds. So the one on the left is most likely vacuum sealing their pillows, and the one on the right is not. We're going to run through some of the other ways that we can save fees, and then we're going to do kind of a whole summary of the savings just by making this change in terms of going from small oversized to large standard size in this example, all across the way. What is that ripple effect that can be created by reducing this packaging? Because this is just the first step, and you can apply pretty much any of these steps along the way. This would just be the best first place to start if you're going to go actually invest some time in this process. Some of these other ones are a little bit easier to negotiate, but this in itself is really the biggest impact. And I actually had I have a friend who had a glasses case, he was selling them in a hard case, and he switched to a sleeve, and he was able to see significant increase in profitability all across the supply chain, which is what we're gonna highlight. So the next step in this optimizing your packaging and optimizing your shipping is really to look at your cartons and your pallets and seeing if you can reduce the total number of cartons, the total number of pallets. Because if you have to pay $15 per pallet or $20 or sometimes even $40 per pallet, depending on the company, if you have to pay that in storage fees, you'd want to reduce the number of pallets. Reducing those number of pallets can be significantly impactful to the bottom line. Similarly, your cartons, if you're paying $4 per carton, if you can reduce your cartons by even 25%, that is some significant savings. So we've actually, the best way to figure out how to do that is to look at your product dimensions and your pallet dimensions and be able to work it backwards to figure out what is the best box size, what is the best carton size to fit as many units into that carton and as many cartons onto that pallet. There's a specific volume that can fit on a pallet, and we want to make sure that we're maximizing that volume. So we have a free tool. There's a lot of math involved in this. So we have a free tool that does all the math, does all the calculations for you. You plug your data in there, and it's able to spit out what does your current system look like, currently optimized, and what should you do if you want to increase that bottom line. So that is at sostock.com/tools. And that is something that we'll show you a quick example. It will give you a pack list and a savings report. So this is one of the savings reports. This is an actual example, and it's an extreme example. It's not going to be everyone, but it kind of shows you, this is an actual seller who plugged their data in, and some people are only using 50% of the amount of space that they should be using in their packaging because the cartons are shaped in such a way that they're not able to properly fit enough on there. Maybe they're too long, maybe they're, too small. For various different reasons, the size of the carton is not optimized for a pallet. So this person saved 93 cents per unit, and per order was saving almost $2,000. That's a significant impact on their bottom line. If they, as they spread this across their entire catalog, it gets to be a lot of savings that could go into more products, could go into further marketing, could go into your next vacation, right? And feel free to let me know if you have any questions. If I'm going too fast or you want to clarify anything, I'm happy to. So the final piece to this is your container shipping. If you have to pay $10,000 per container, you want to get as many units into that container as possible. So it's important to fit the boxes in there the right way, to have it be organized and fit the right way in order to get as many units per cart. There's a free tool called peertopeer.com/load calc. And this will help you to figure out the best way to fit your particular product into, or your set of products, right? Your packaging into the container. When you have, that $10,000 and you're able to fit more units, it disperses that cost over more units. So that's the final piece. And again, if you start from reducing your product size, that's going to get you into more units per carton, more units per pallet, and more units per container. So reducing your packaging size is kind of the first piece in this domino effect. And here's where you get into how do we put it all together and how does the domino fall in terms of not just what did we save in fulfillment fees, but what did we save all along the way being able to do this. So fulfillment fees are almost twice as much, storage fees twice as much, container fees, receiving, palletizing, box forwarding is the only one that is pretty much the same. This is before cost of goods. This is before factoring in your PPC. This is before even that round shipping from your 3PL into Amazon. Total fees on one side is $14.40. On this side, it's $26.10. That's a difference of $11.70 per unit. If I am able to save $11.70 per unit, I can spend more on ads. I can take my capital and turn over my product, my inventory faster. I can do a lot of things to beat my competition at this point. Looking at this particular product and running an assessment on what they were selling per month, they're selling 2,200 units per month. Savings per month would be $25,000 if they were able to get their product to the size that their competitor's product is. And then over a year, $300,000. And then on exit, that would be $1.5 million that you're putting in your pocket at a 5x multiple, only one product in your catalog. So if you extend this into your entire catalog, these are changes that are really worth making, not just because you get more money, more profit on a regular basis and to apply to your business growth, but also when you exit, if you exit, that you have more profit to base that exit on. All right, and then we're gonna basically look at if you did have unit optimization, carton optimization, pallet, if you were able to get your calculations right so that you're not stocking out, you're not having to do expensive air shipments because you miscalculated your data or how soon to order. That would equate to almost $200,000. Let's say in a large catalog, this is savings, right? An example, $200,000 would then at a 5x multiple turn into almost $1 million. So these types of things and it works on a sliding scale. If you've got a smaller business, this is, going to be a smaller amount, maybe take a few zeros away, but it still has a significant impact on your business and can mean the difference between a product being profitable or a product being something that drags your business down and at some point needs to be put out to pasture. Here's the tools that we mentioned for supply chain optimization, which is what I call this profit optimization across the supply chain. The SoStock.com tools, onpallet.com is another free tool that helps you to figure out how to properly palletize. So you can check that out as well. Similar to SoStock's tool, but not exact. It does give a little bit more on how to arrange your boxes if you have boxes that are not shaped, in terms of how they're shaped, fitting them onto your pallet properly. And then peer-to-peer, the load the container calculator. Oh, we already went through that. Here we go. What is inventory-minded marketing? So we're going to talk about now, what are those systems that you can apply to coordinate your inventory team and your marketing team? The number one reason, before restock limits, right? We're past restock limits now, but before restock limits, the number one reason people stocked out was because their marketing and their inventory weren't in sync. They were marketing themselves into a stock out. That sort of spawned this inventory-minded marketing concept and wanted to create coordination points between inventory and marketing. First and foremost, this started with recognizing that marketing needed to give a marketing plan to the inventory team. The inventory team then needed to take that data, vet it against their inventory, compare it to their inventory, and get back to the marketing team and let them know if they were going to be causing problems in terms of stockouts. So that was the first piece to it, was marketing giving a report to inventory. Now we've kind of evolved that into that inventory has to take a more proactive role in the process. They need to supply specific data to the marketing team, which is these reports that are listed here. I'm going to go through all of these reports, so I'm not going to really get into in the weeds on this particular slide about these reports, because we're going to dive into what are these reports and how are they used by the marketing team? First and foremost, we have inventory-minded marketing planner. This is the marketing report that goes to the inventory team and want to know what sales velocity are we needing to use? Are we using last year's sales? Are we using an average? Are we launching a new product and we're using a manual velocity? That's data that should go to the inventory team. Are we using a trend? Are we looking the difference between last year versus this year's trend? Are we looking at, 1 month to the next, 1 quarter to the next? Are we applying a trend to that? Is that important? Are we doing a PPC campaign where we'll have additional growth, let's say 10%? We want to know that because maybe there's a product that can't support 10%. There's not enough inventory before a stock out is created. Then we have lightning deals. Lightning deals, obviously a date range. This is for any sales event. If you have an email campaign and a Facebook, campaign, how many, how long is that going to occur? And then how many total units should be sold during that time? And then we have seasonal sales spikes, which is a date range and a percentage increase, could even be a decrease as well. So that's the marketing team's responsibility to send to the inventory team. Now, these reports are reports that are sent to the marketing team from the inventory team. And these are things that you can create yourself that would take a bit of manual data entry if you're using an Excel spreadsheet. For those of you who are currently using SoStock, these are reports that are either defaults in SoStock or are reports that can be built into SoStock. And we'll talk about the metrics so that you can know how to build them, because certain ones, everyone's business is different. So you'll have to decide what metrics and what numbers make most sense to you. So the first one is the stock out risk report. That's going to tell you which products have a potential of stocking out, how many days they would be stocked out, what date they'll be stocked out on, and then we'll give you kind of a picture of the last year. How often did they stock out? How many days did they stock out? And what is the percentage of the year that they were stocked out? Because you can identify immediately that you've got this one of 29% of the year it was stocked out. There's got to be something wrong with your supply chain or how you're handling your inventory. So those become red flags. If you do not have SoStock, the calculation to figure this out would be your total inventory and then divided by your daily adjusted sales velocity is going to give you your total days of remaining stock. And so you can look at today's date and see, let's say 30 days into the future, that's my stock out day. Then we have a slow sellers report. And the slow sellers report is just what it sounds like. Slow sellers, with the caveat that not all of your slow sellers are going to go on this list. We're going to be creating a range. This range is something I call these the move it or lose it SKUs. They're borderline. They're not doing well, but we haven't completely given up on them. We need to have these as focus items to move into being a viable product. And if they're not moved into being a viable product and they keep getting slower and slower and slower, they'll become duds. They will be hurting our business. We'll collect more fees than we make. So this is how we do this. We are going to select the daily adjusted velocity. We're going to select a minimum and a maximum. So let's say you've got 5 as the minimum and 20 as the maximum. Within that range of daily velocity, the slow sellers are going to show up. And what should be done is that the marketing team should see this and should say, okay, these are the red flag products. These are the products that we really need to put some marketing campaign behind. Not to ignore these because they're only focused on the major profit generators, but to understand that, one, you should be generating profit from as many SKUs as possible. but also that you're going to pay on the other side in terms of storage fees and eventually maybe removal fees if you get into the point of getting close to that 9-month aged inventory fee. So the next report is the liquidation report. This is the one that you really are not going to restock. You're giving up on these. This would only have a minimum. So you choose your adjusted velocity and you say anything less than 5 is going to be on my liquidation report. We need to get rid of these as soon as possible and as profitably as possible. So the best plan is to have some sort of a flash sale, reduce your price, do a coupon code. Reducing your price will probably be more effective because it shows up on the page. It's not something that you have to send out and market, but whatever makes the most sense for you, whatever your team's strengths are, figure out how to sell through this inventory as profitably and quickly as possible before you start incurring massive fees. And of course, if you can't sell through this product, Amazon has a liquidation program. There are also other liquidation programs that are available, and some of those are Backtrack is one of them. Another one that I have heard of, and I haven't tried this one, returnsworldwide.com. And then a recent one I just heard of, again, I haven't tried it, so you have to vet these companies out, but is ridmyinventory.com. So those are some ones that you can look into, see if any of them work for you. Feel free to contact me and let me know your experiences if you do work with these, but hopefully you won't have to liquidate inventory that way. And then of course you can create removal orders and remove them and sell them on other channels. Lastly, we have the overstock report. Overstock, we're looking at how many days worth of inventory do we have? Let's say 90 days worth of inventory. Over 90 days is too much. We want to know about this so we can move this inventory before it continues to collect fees. Because every single month when we pay that monthly storage fee, our products are getting less and less profitable as the months go on. So really removing this excess inventory is important. This isolates that. It's a lot of the slow sellers, the liquidation products have the potential of being on this report, but your best sellers could also be on this report. And that it brings up and brings to light actually an asset that you have. Because money is not, it's not just that money is an asset, it's that your products can be an asset in terms of buying ranking, for example, freeing up storage space, which becomes less important with restock limits being a thing of the past, but is also, if your IPI, if your inventory performance index score is fairly low, this is something that you'll want to do. You can use this inventory, this excess inventory, like I said, to buy more rank. If you've got a bestseller that you really want to push that and you want to get it to rank higher on page 1 for specific keywords, you can use the excess inventory for targeted campaigns because you can afford to increase your sell-through. The best scenario for looking at these reports is if you have something on the slow sellers report and the overstock report, because you know you have to boost the sales for that slow seller and you know you have the inventory with which to do that. So you can use this inventory, leverage this inventory to increase ranking on this slow seller and try to move it out the top of that list into being a viable product. So those are the reports. Those are the reports for your inventory-minded marketing. Just to emphasize, focusing on coordination of your teams, as well as optimizing your supply chain, are ways that you can really increase your profitability in 2022 in the face of the 2022 Amazon fee stack, as I'm now calling it, the massive amounts of fees that they pushed on us month after month for the first 5 or 6 months of the year, right? That kind of wraps things up. If you do have questions, post them in the comments. I'm going to give you a little bit of information on SoStock in case you had some questions on that, or in case you were interested in learning more. We are the first fully customizable Amazon inventory software built for sellers by sellers, which is a cliche thing to say, but it usually means that one seller or a couple of sellers created a software and for what they wanted for their business. We literally work with hundreds of sellers. I onboarded every seller that came into our software for the first 2.5 years. My business partner did every single customer support ticket for the 2.5 years, and we gave those results directly to our developers. We got feedback, we implemented it, and a lot of the features that we have are because sellers gave us their spreadsheets, they gave us their systems, they gave us their ideas, and really helped us to create the tool that they would have wanted to make for themselves. We have a ton of happy customers. We have a free data migration. So if you're using a spreadsheet, we can help you to, give us the data on what is that, what are your, what is the information that you have to put in? Are there any POs that are outstanding? What are those things that you need help migrating to save you some time, to help you get into testing out the software to see if it's going to work for you more quickly? Then we have one-on-one onboarding calls. Like I mentioned, I did all the onboarding for the first 2.5 years. We have continued to onboard. If you need help, you'll book a call with one of our onboarding specialists who will help you to complete the setup, to really understand the tool, to get your questions answered, and to analyze your processes from your specific business perspective. Here's some of the features we were talking about. The stockout algorithm. This is kind of where you'll find that. The velocity is here. We have restock limits. That's not, again, necessarily something that you need anymore unless you're experiencing restock limits in, let's say, Canada or something. We have the velocity calculation, trends, sales spikes, deep discount sales, factoring out sales, stock outs, adding additional sales growth, let's say in PPC campaigns, all of those things. They're marketing tools. Marketing tools are extremely important in avoiding stock outs. And one of the reasons that I had trouble with these other softwares that I was testing out in 2018 was they didn't have these marketing tools. That piece was unavailable. A lot of these softwares they give you past data and they tell you here's what you need to order based on past data, but they don't let you factor in your marketing, your future planning. So that's a real big difference in terms of the effectiveness of your inventory planning. Then we have, what is my favorite piece, is the inventory timeline. A lot of people don't necessarily like this part of their business, and there's a lot of numbers, and not everyone is very numbers based. And so it's very important to be able to see the calculations. If I'm being told to order 3,000 units of a product, why is that? This timeline will show you on a daily basis, this is switched daily, weekly, or monthly. On a regular basis, what are you selling through? What are the orders that you have to place? What are the transfers and why? And are you going to have a stock out somewhere, right? Like in September, we see this red one, that means a stock out. So this gives you a high level view of an entire year's worth of your business. Then we have our order and transfer tracker. You're able to make purchase orders and work orders, which is an order to your warehouse on what to do with your inventory, and track these on a tracker. Is it in production? When is it going to leave production? When is it going to arrive at its final destination? If it's en route, is it going by boat? Maybe it's going by plane, and this would be a little airplane. Is it going to a warehouse? Is it about to check into the warehouse? And what is involved? Like what are those things that are on this shipment or on this purchase order? And then lastly, FBA check-in. Then you have the custom inventory dashboards. This is stuff that we really highlighted in the inventory minded marketing. being able to customize the data that you want and create and save dashboards. There's about 80 data points that you can include or exclude from various different dashboards that you create. And then you're able to group these, let's say group by supplier, group by warehouse. You're also able to filter. So you can filter by, I only want to see products between 5 and 20 units a day for my slow sellers report, or I need to see everything with a velocity above 50 units a day. Whatever it is that you need, you're able to filter that data, and you can export those reports and send them to various different teams that might need it. And then again, PO and transfer creation. This allows you to pull data directly from your purchase or your product database and build out purchase orders for you based on your forecast. Includes your lead time, so you know how many days it's going to take from that placing that order to that order actually being that order actually being at your warehouse or at FBA. A couple of different reviews were, we will wrap up with this. Here's some reviews, and you can find our reviews on the Amazon App Store. Forecasting is hands down the most accurate I've come across in 7 years. Solved 99% of our inventory forecasting problems, getting rid of spreadsheets forever, which we love. Making much more money now, right? We talked about that guy who stopped stocking out on his best sellers, helping to make more money by avoiding stockouts. Weekly inventory went from hours down to minutes. Saving people time has been a huge mission of ours, saving time and saving money. In fact, we have a mission to get to the point of being able to save across the board, save our users $100,000 a day, essentially. That's a huge goal for me. We will be going into profit optimization, just as we do forecasting. We want to do cash flow and profit. That stuff is coming. We're going to be starting to build that out in the end of the year. Then we have, this is the best so far, trying many different inventory apps and, tracking recommendation, and then truly listens to our needs. That's being able to have that direct feedback, we have people reach out to us. We have a system for catching your ideas and being able to see what the community wants and what we need to do to take our software to the next step in making everyone's lives much more easy. All right, that's it for me. There is a free 30-day free trial. That free trial is available on sostocked.com. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. sostocked.com/connect is where you can get me. You can also find the tools there. So if you want to check out the tools, you can go to sostocked.com/tools, or you can just go through Connect. My socials are there. You can get me through email, but feel free to reach out. And again, if you try any of these things out, reach out to me. Let me know how you do with it. Always like to connect to people in the community. All right, again, if you have any questions, let me know. It's been a little bit quiet, so I know this is a lot of information. Hopefully you will implement at least one of these things and be able to receive some value from what we have talked about here. All right, thanks so much, you guys. I appreciate you, and yeah, have a great rest of your week. It's the end of the week, and I'm trying to stop sharing. Oh well. That's it. Thanks so much, guys.